IVM.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, your peak performance coach, life coach, emotional intelligence practitioner, and NLP practitioner. I'm also the founder of Abso Expertise Unique, and my organization constantly aims at building leaders across continents. After having worked with so many dynamic business honchos, entrepreneurs, startups, CEOs, management gurus, parents, and student communities worldwide, I am convinced that every individual has unleashed potential. And all we really need to do is realize it. Watch the magic unfold, enhance quality of life, relationships, and professions. On my show, be ready for some riveting conversations with inspirational people, snippets, stories, and much more. So here I am on this exceptional journey to find empowerment and inspiration anywhere I can. Come join me on this breathtaking path of self-realization, potential maximization, positivity, and most of all, embrace your inner power. You are on your way to empowering yourselves. Welcome to the Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla. Hello and welcome to the Empowering Series with me, Zarina. On today's episode, I'm in conversation with a creative consultant, a creative lead, founder of Good News Indians, and fellow host, the co-host of Smile India, Shifa Maitra. Hello, Shifa.
Hi, Zarina. Wonderful to be on your show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're on the show. How have you been?
I've been good at home under lockdown, but yeah.
Under lockdown.
Yes.
So these days, my first question usually is, how is the lockdown treating you?
So far, so good. It's just the uncertainty that is now getting to me a bit. But other than that, yeah, it's great because, you're spending time doing things that you don't normally get time to do. And yeah, relearning cooking, which I'm quite enjoying. So far, so good.
So you definitely might have some recipes and tips to share at the end of this conversation.
Just hacks probably on what to do and to save time.
How to save time. I'm wondering what people are going to do with the extra time because they have a lot of time at home.
But it still feels like there isn't enough time because you're not used to doing so much of, work around the house. So, the books that have still not opened are still shut. You still haven't got down to actually reading them or, watching all the movies and all the TV shows. Yeah.
No, that's very true actually, because people are thinking they're at home, but there's plenty to do. And now that we're without help as much, most homes are without help. So it's time consuming for sure.
It is. And the good thing is that you actually start valuing your help so much more and realize how much they actually do for us. Yeah.
Seriously, that's absolutely true. So is there anything apart from cooking or the hacks that you're learning or you've learned during this period, the lockdown period?
I think to begin with that you have to, actually, like there was this joke going around on WhatsApp, but that's so true that on the first 2 days you go to corners of the house and clean up which have never been dusted for like the longest time. And then after 2 days you become just like your maid and you become a kamchor and you just do what is necessary.
I didn't give it that thought, but yes, this is definitely something to think about. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think even I'm doing the same thing to some extent.
No, and it's really true. And in fact, my sister-in-law, who's like this, top-notch doctor, and I told her that it's like really difficult, getting down and mopping every day and stuff. And she said, you're not going to get any medal for doing it every day. It's okay if you do it every alternate day.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I was having this conversation with somebody earlier and they have kids and they're like, I'm unable to kind of cope with everything altogether. And I said exactly that. You don't need to do everything every day. Like even a task like cooking, cook a meal and leave it for a day. Try and have it also for the next afternoon and then probably make something fresh in the evening. Things like that. You've got to kind of manage. Right?
Totally.
You had this amazing journey and I've been reading about you. You've worked closely with films, radio, television, digital, whatnot actually. So the profile is so versatile. Please tell us about your journey, Shifa.
Okay, so actually I think I was in school when I I was always very interested in writing and stuff. So I wrote these articles and I never told anyone. And my parents were like pleasantly surprised to see my name in an article by me in the newspaper. And so I was like very sure that journalism is what I want to do. And I think, yeah, that's where it all began.
So you started off with journalism and then...
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did my master's in mass communication, and the idea was, like even then from Sapphire Polytechnic, and so they have a great course called SCM, Social Communication Media. And I got in because I had so many printed articles and stuff. But, I think I should have seen at that point only, because by the time I finished the course, I wanted to get into advertising. So I trained in advertising, then realized that, selling soap wasn't really that exciting. And then I moved back. I moved to journalism, and I was doing a lot of feature writing and entertainment journalism. And from there, I moved to actually from writing about television people to actually writing for television. So that's where it all began.
That's quite striking, actually, because it's not easy to dabble with so many things and so many different... Yes, of course, it's all to do with media in some way or the other, in some form or the other. But then again, you also did a lot of radio.
So yeah, I was doing television, fiction shows, non-fiction shows, the entire gamut. And at that point, reality shows were just about starting out. And there was this first wedding show on TV that we did that I was creative director on with Madhuri Dixit. So, that was fun, all of it. And then I moved to Delhi. And at that point, like I was doing, a whole lot of work over here in television. But when I went to Delhi, I realized that TV wasn't that big in Delhi. So although, because, people who knew me from Bombay wanted me to do some stuff there as well. So I started looking after the Delhi section of a very popular show called Crime Patrol, which at that point it wasn't fiction, it was real cases. So it was a new city and, getting to know all about the crimes. So I was looking after all of North India. So yeah, so that was a great learning as well. But then I helped set up a Nepali channel out of Delhi and Kathmandu. So that was again a great challenge because it was a new language, a new country. And so, I did all of that. But then after that, I realized that there's just that much that, you set it up, it's doing well. And then I got an opportunity to do radio because radio had just opened up in our country. And that's when I moved to radio. And so I was at Radio Mirchi in Delhi for a couple of years. And then when I wanted to move back to Bombay, I moved with radio to Bombay.
That's quite a journey. Mumbai, Delhi. And let me tell you, my mother watches Crime Patrol on loop. I don't know for what joy, but she does. She's on loop. It's just always on. And you almost feel scared because she looks at you with suspicious eyes because now she's just become so used to this whole thing. So yeah, when you said Crime Patrol, I think I'm going to have to tell her I spoke to somebody who's worked closely with Crime Patrol. She'll be happy about that.
No, and the thing is that, can I just tell you about another very interesting thing which I did, which was when we started this channel called Nepal One in Nepal, in Kathmandu. So that was the first non-government channel in the country. So everything we did was new for them, from the first daily soap to, a whole lot of stuff. So we thought of the idea of doing something to help find, because a huge problem there is children who go missing. So we did a show called Missing. So we did about 13 weeks of it. And we managed to find 8 children who got back to their homes and families because of this TV show. And that was really, really, really heartening because you realized, how much you can do in terms of actually helping people.
That's very surprising. I've never heard of that before. And the fact that you actually managed to find missing children.
Missing children, yeah.
Wow. I mean, you wouldn't imagine something like that happening. And when you're in the middle of your work and you're just doing your job and you're able to actually get some results out of that, so real.
Like, I'm still getting goosebumps because, those families, those mothers who actually got their children back. And the good thing was that because the language is Nepali, and so people who understand Nepali all over India were watching it as well. So there was a person who was watching it in a hotel room in Delhi. And he called, and we had the numbers flashing. So he called up the Delhi office and said, there's this boy who just came and, served me something in this room. And I think it's the same child. So we told him, okay, just can you get him to come there? We'll come and talk to him. And it was the same child. And,
Oh my God.
to get him to, and then he took a aircraft for the first time in his life. And we took him, we actually sent someone with him to Kathmandu and the family meeting them. It was amazing. It was really an experience.
Wow, it's so reassuring to have that kind of a journey. And I'm pretty sure that somewhere inside it changes you also, there's this hope.
Yeah, it does. Of course. And also, I think probably that was among the first few things that made me realize that if you, do something believing in it, actually the universe conspires in your favor. So it's really worth it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling really heartened right now just listening to this. So I kind of went speechless for a few seconds. All right. Why don't you tell me about Smile India? I said you're a, co-host. We're colleagues, just that we haven't met yet.
Yeah.
And, so how did Smile India happen for you?
Okay, so basically, I generally am a positive kind of person. I try to look for, positive everywhere I can find it, and I do find it everywhere. And so there was one point about 3 years ago when I realized that whether it was news channels, whether it was, Twitter, whether it was newspapers, everyone was just so negative about the country and, what is going wrong and this is banned and we're not allowed to do this. And it kind of got to me. So actually, I think, after probably watching the news for some time, I was sitting late at night and surfing, and again, there was just everybody raving and ranting. So I thought, let me just try and look for stuff that's good in our country today. And I looked and there were so many good things. So I set up a page on Facebook called Good News Indians. And so that's been around for about 3 years. And every day I put out 4 pieces of news, which could be a video, could be a photograph, articles, interviews of people. Sometimes we actually go out and we have a production house, so we shoot with people who are doing great stuff. And if you just realize that there's so many people who want to, know about it, who want to feel good about being Indians. And yeah, so that's how I started out with Good News Indians. And then, when I was discussing it with IVM, we were discussing a whole lot of ideas. And I told them about this page, and they said, hey, that's what you should be doing your podcast on. So that's how it began. So yeah, Smile India is a new show in that sense, but I'm totally enjoying it.
Just the name brings a smile on your face. There's nothing not to enjoy about it.
And it's interesting because it's in English and in Hindi. So in that sense, there are 2 different sets of audiences that we talk to, but the stories are the same, yeah.
So you're recording twice, basically.
That's right, yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. I haven't yet come around the idea of doing my show in Hindi. But
it's actually, after I think about 12 weeks is when the reactions started really coming in. So they realized that a lot of people, were listening to it in smaller towns of India as well. For me, that's a big high. I really like the fact that I can, talk to people.
Reach out
to people who I normally won't, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that with all of this and someone like you sound like, somebody who smiles through the storm in general. So
yeah,
it is
I think that's the easiest way of getting through it. Because you've got to go through the storm any which way. So, you might as well smile through it.
I absolutely agree and second that, because I also come from a slightly more positively tilted thoughts. But in general, it can be very hard. It can be hard when you're trying to tell people and let's say you're trying to convince people to see the brighter side of things at times.
Oh, yeah, it is. And a lot of times, people are like, you don't know what I'm going through. I'm like, I'm sure I don't know what you're going through, but I know what I've been through and what I'm going through. And so I just realized after a point, you can only show your own example, and it's up to the person to be able to get it or not get it. So
now, of course, this journey of yours with smiling through the storm must have its own shares of ups and downs, right?
Yeah, actually, I think for a long time it was like a very regular life and a very wonderful childhood and parents, typical Bombay Bandra family and all of it. And then suddenly there were, issues back to back. And that kind of really hit me. As in, I was doing well at work and everything's great at home. And then I decided after my parents had kind of given up that I was ever going to get married or not going to have an arranged marriage for sure. I then I fell in love with somebody and moved to Delhi to be with him. And there were, everyone in my profession thought that, why would I want to, I'm doing television and Mumbai is the place to be doing it. But at that point, I was clear that no, I want to be in Delhi. And then, of course, I loved Delhi and it was like a new world and, there was so much to learn. That's where I started work on the Nepali channel as well. But somehow my marriage just fell apart. And just, coming to terms with that the fact that, I can't be in denial because I took this decision, that took some time to, wrap my head around it. Of course, I tried to put up this brave front because family was away. Most of my close friends were in Mumbai. Of course, I made some great friends in Delhi as well. But then all that took a toll on my health. And that was a really difficult period. But then actually, at that point, my family was the one that insisted that, I move back home. So I moved back to Bombay and I was with Radio Mirchi at that point, and they were like absolutely wonderful. And they were like, you need to go to Bombay. We'll make sure that you are with us. And at that point, I was the programming head in Delhi. And I knew that there was somebody else who's a programming head in Bombay, but they said that, no, you need to be in the system. And within a couple of months, I was, looking after the Mumbai station as well. So, so it kind of fell into place. And then I'm so glad that I managed to, I got well after I came home, and then my mom came back with me to Delhi to help me wind up. And actually, when the doctors told me over here also that, you're suppressing some kind of emotions, I just went for a walk one day on, to Carter Road. Our house is right near the sea. And it was almost like, I looked at the sea and I was like, I need to get a grip on myself because I can't have, and my family, my friends, everyone was like rock solid around me. And that's when I decided I'm not going to fall ill. I'm not allowed to. I don't allow myself to. And then, things were the work was going great. And then I lost my mom suddenly. So that was like a huge setback. But then you just pick up. And then 2 years later, I lost my father as well. So that was a difficult period. But again, I really look at the brighter side as well, because after my first marriage broke up, I was like, I hate men and I will not look at a man for the rest of my life and all of it. But you can never say never. And then I met someone and, we started seeing each other, and now we're really happily married for 6 years. So I think, you have to look at the positive, and the positive comes to you.
I'm so sorry about your parents, and it must have been really hard. It sounds like you had your, let's say, fight with destiny and trying to get yourself and putting your pieces together over a period of time. But there is a stigma around marriages, and like you said, it was this decision that you took and which you obviously were in denial about for a while. So I'm pretty sure that is the situation with a lot of people around us, especially in our society, where they take a decision and regarding marriage, and then somehow you're just forced to imagine that you need to stick to this decision.
And even, whatever else might happen, there is still that entire, firstly, that denial of saying this can't be happening to me. And especially if it's a love marriage, you haven't really, but you feel like you burnt your bridges, and that's why you need to make this work come what may. But honestly, having been there, trust me, there's no bridges are burnt. And in fact, I was really surprised because, of course, my family was like hugely supportive, and I was like, nobody's going to ask me any questions. So they were like, fine. So nobody ever asked me that what is it or what went wrong or any of it, which I think is wonderful. And my friends were like, great. They actually came to Delhi to check on me and stuff like that. And what I also realized is professionally also, people are more than happy to, welcome you back. And it's not like, if you've done good work or you've done work in the past, that always works in your favor, and you will always get more jobs, more assignments, projects. That's a learning that for me. I mean, I used to do a lot of work with part of all the work I'd been doing involved being with, Bollywood and film stars and stuff. And I was so surprised that so many of those people also, not necessarily actors, but others, were just so warm and, they were like, okay, we're great. You're back from Delhi. Now, come on, let's meet up. Let's do this. Let's do that. And that really made me feel like I was overthinking things.
Yeah, because sometimes people around us, when your ecosystem is strong and supportive, I believe it truly helps to kind of build you. Of course, we try and build ourselves most of the times, but having a strong ecosystem and encouragement around you, and people actually, it's not about you forgetting what's happened with you, but somebody not constantly reminding you.
True.
I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And also, I think that friends are one of the biggest investments you have in life, because when you have great friends, and like, we have this group of about 5 of us who have been friends for like 25 years, and we've seen each other through marriages and divorces and losing parents, losing jobs, all of it. But this gang has been there for each other, and I think that's really precious, and we shouldn't ever take friends for granted.
I agree.
So,
and that's something we do very often.
Very often.
Friends are usually take it for granted. You don't communicate that often. You don't keep in touch so many times. But then if, the bond is so real, sometimes you just don't have to. You just pick up from where you left last.
Oh, yeah, very, totally. And also, sometimes it's really strange, but you can actually sense when a friend needs to talk, and because of Facebook and WhatsApp and all, you think you know what's happening in each other's lives, but you need that, one-on-one connection. You need to talk on the phone. You need to go out for a coffee, go out for a drink. That kind of thing, you need to make time for it.
Absolutely, Shifa. So, maybe a piece of advice or counsel for people in marriages that aren't working out, and also for people who are miserably single. And I say miserably because they're so eager to get married. I don't know what they're finding on the other side of this, fence. But the fact that they can literally not see themselves grow individually, and they really think that until and unless they don't get married, they haven't achieved something, or maybe people around them make them feel so. So what advice do you have for such?
That I think that I think to a large extent, you have to trust the universe and believe that what's meant for you will come to you. And the minute you are desperate, that's the message you're giving out to the world. And in desperation, you do the most stupid things. So I think that if you sit peacefully and comfortable in your own skin, the right person will come. I mean, like my husband Harshad and I, he was also married earlier, and we never even, we weren't looking for each other, any of that, and we just started talking as friends, and before we knew it, we were up all night talking to each other. But then, you're still wary, and you're like, okay, we have to take it slow. Let's see, let's, this thing, and then Cupid took over, I guess.
And once Cupid took over, things just fell in place for you.
Yeah, I mean, every day is a learning, but it's still fun. It's, all of us are weird. You have to just choose the weirdo you want to be with. So, yeah.
That is so true. I agree. So, you're so positive, you're so full of life. And this conversation, although it's not in person, I can just sense that, that constant positive energy in this conversation. How do you always find the silver lining? Yes, truly, truly. How do you always find that silver lining?
Because I believe that it's there. So even if I can't see it right now, it will be, I have decided that it's there. So it'll manifest itself and I will be able to see it. So I just kind of go with that.
That's beautifully put, actually. The whole idea of wanting people to smile, looking out for the positivity around you, does that sometimes create pressure on you to constantly be positive? You know how we come across a certain way to people, so then they expect us to be that way most times of our lives.
Yeah, but I realized that it's not possible to be positive all the time. So things that work for me, that if I know that something is, if I'm not, this conversation, like say even with my husband or with my brother, something is not going anywhere, I prefer to ask for a timeout. And then, I've realized that just putting some time and distance into things, just, helps you calm down, helps the other person calm down. And then I just go and do what I feel like doing. So whether it means, I want to listen to some music, I want to watch something, I can actually switch off. And then when I come back, 9 out of 10 times I've forgotten why I was fighting with that person or why we had an argument also. So that kind of works, yeah.
Yeah, you just sleep over it and then it's gone.
Yeah.
It's just over. Yeah, that makes sense. But do you sometimes feel that, there are certain issues that need communication? And
yeah, totally.
There are these people who constantly find the need to have confrontation or conflict or communicate, which of course is also not the right way of doing things. But then how do you balance? How do you know when you need to kind of, let go and when you need to talk something out? Just to keep your sanity.
I've actually learned the hard way, because I used to be someone who would sweep everything under the carpet because I didn't want to get into a conflict with anyone. And then I actually had to work on myself and realize that if you don't bring it out into the open, it's still going to be there. It's not going away anywhere. So now I do bring up issues that are bothering me with anybody, whether it's professionally, personally. But then I also realize that I don't have to, everything is not worth getting into a battle for. So there are some things which are intrinsic, which are very important to me. So I will not compromise on those. There are a whole lot of other things which, are really not earth shattering. So I go with the flow in that.
No, that makes sense, because to be honest, I think it's more about choosing your battles wisely.
Totally, yeah.
Right? And also the fact that you prioritize what you really need to communicate about and what not. I mean, the people that are important, the people that you actually want to make sure that things are in a good space with.
Right.
I think those are the people that you can't take a chance with. You will have to find a way to speak to them, because when you start sweeping everything under the carpet, eventually there's a heap of dust there and dirt there which you have to clean.
Totally. And also that, again, over time and I think age, it kind of teaches you who are the people who are important and who are the ones who are, where the relationship, also you have to come to terms with the fact that whether it's friends, whether it's, some relatives, all of it, you can outgrow friendships, you can outgrow, so everything can't be based just on nostalgia or a shared history. So at those times you have to learn how to, I'm not saying, you let go of those relationships, but you decide that how much of yourself you want to invest in them.
That's a very important thing, Shifa, because people hold on to a relationship the way it used to be in the past and expect it to be exactly the same. So that's very good insight you've given. I don't think I've discussed this before with anybody. So it's nice that you're bringing it up.
Yeah. And also, a lot of times you're looking at things through such rose-tinted glasses because that's the way it was. But the point is that you have changed, the other person would have changed, the reality of the world has changed. So you need to move with times. And the would kind of people really get to me. Relax.
Can you elaborate? Can you elaborate for us?
There's a whole lot of things that this is the way it should be done. And, I would expect this from you. I would have thought you would call me at 12 o'clock on my birthday. But I went to sleep at 11:30. Do you mind? So I called you the next morning. So, yeah. So those kind of things. And again, like I said, over time, I realized that, I am not interested in, getting brownie points from you or from anybody all the time. I'm going to do what works for me. And trust me, everybody, manages perfectly well, even if the earth is not on my shoulders or anybody's shoulders. You can't control people, can't control situation. Just chill.
Yeah, and I think the lesson that you're teaching us is when you stop being a people pleaser, you will start pleasing yourself.
Totally. And that's the most important, I realize. Because you have to live with yourself for the rest of your life,
And a couple of things that you mentioned, they kind of highlight the fact that people have too much expectation from others.
Yeah.
Maybe if you start having those from yourself instead of others, you'll realize that you won't be bothered if somebody didn't call you at 12 at night for your birthday.
Exactly. And also, to think of what are you doing for me and all of that. When people say things like that, I immediately get, wow, like what are you bringing to the table? It has to be like a two-way thing, so.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, this also kind of summarizes how people should perceive their love life to some extent, Shifa.
Yeah.
In just in general, in terms of when you love somebody, you look at them, you love them, and then once you're with them, you want to change everything about them.
Exactly. I mean, why?
Exactly. Why? If you've loved something for the way it is, if you loved a Gucci bag, you can't bring it home and suddenly, start tearing it down and reassembling it. If you've got yourself a MacBook, you don't kind of bring it home and then break it down and start. What you will do is you will enhance what you have. You might get a new cover for it. You might get a new, accessory for something. But you enhance what you've got
And
because you value it
and look after it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Spot on. Absolutely.
No, actually, my husband said something very interesting when we first started dating, and he was like, everybody kind of puts up this thing of, and especially I think, when you're younger, all of it, that you're putting your best foot forward, you're always on your best behavior. He was like, let's both see each other at our worst and then decide whether we want to be together. And that makes so much sense because, you've seen all sides of the person and then you take a call.
Right.
Yeah, so that
and also, marriage is not a race. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And people have to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with uncertainty? Because, especially today, it's kind of this thing, I don't know if it's going to continue for another 15 days, another 20 days. That kind of thing I've not been able to wrap my head around because uncertainty is something that still bogs me down.
So, uncertainty, to be honest with you, comes from, it makes you feel anxious. And that anxiety comes from the stress, just the fear of the unknown. The fact is that the word uncertainty means that we don't know it. So what's the point of trying? What's the point of trying to figure something out? Which we're anyway going to be jumping into the sea and figuring out whether we are going to sink or swim. So at the end of the day, we're going to jump into the sea anyway. I mean, if you look at the lockdown in general, Shifa, we started off with a few days. It started with a curfew, went on to a 21-day, and then, it kept extending. But the idea is, why look at it as an uncertainty? The anxiety in us comes from that fact. If it is not a fear, if we look at it as something not to fear and something that is keeping us safe, protected, or it is for the betterment, automatically the mind takes a switch,
That's true, yeah. That is there, but still that slight feeling, I think, of uncertainty is that. So not knowing.
The unknown.
Yeah, the unknown and, coming to terms with the fact that the new normal will be totally different from the life we've lived so far. True.
Yeah, but then again, not everyone thought a lockdown would be normal. I mean, not everyone thought wearing a mask and going out would be normal. And now if I don't see somebody with a mask on the road, I'll be like, what the hell are you doing? Where's your mask?
Exactly.
So I think what human beings are so capable of and they don't realize, and that's why they start fearing, Shifa, is that we're amazingly capable of adapting to situations.
Yeah.
I mean, we're chameleons in that sense. We can just change color, we can adapt, we can evolve. And I think we underestimate what we are capable of in that sense. And that's the reason why we fear the unknown. So all we have to do is just probably one day at a time, one step at a time, just as we're doing currently.
Correct, totally. And one day at a time totally works because, then as long as you, and I like to, at the end of every day, figure out what I did. And if I've cooked one new dish today, I've spoken to 3 old friends today, I just feel that, okay, today's been a good day. So I guess that's the way it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, any little accomplishment. And the fact is that what has really happened is we've been, just the way the virus has really caught the entire world and put it into a little bit of a cage, okay? And unfortunately, we're not realizing that we're still free souls, if you think of it. I mean, it is philosophical in a way, but the fact is that if I didn't call this a lockdown, things would just be different. If I just didn't use certain words to express the situation and the extremity of what we're in, just the words, the choice of words that we use, what we're feeding our mind, I guess that's just the game it is. And in fact, somebody asked me the other day also, how are you dealing with the lockdown? And I'm like, it's not locking me down. I'm living it up. If I look at it like that every day, I mean, I'm getting through it because, to be honest, what can people like us complain about? We have everything.
So a little bit of that fear, it can be nice because sometimes you never know, you might be full of surprises at the end of this. You realize so many new things about yourself, about people, about your surroundings. And then when you get into the new normal again, maybe there'll be so much more realization.
Oh, totally.
And so maybe it's got its own good, in it.
Yeah, and you start realizing, I mean, for me, a big realization is how little we actually need. Because,
So true.
Yeah, you're just filling up your day and life and home with, stuff you don't need. Now, if you don't have Thai curry paste, it's okay. You'll make something else. So,
Right. And this conversation I was having with somebody the other day because I was talking to someone and they said that, would you prefer to live away from the city? And I said, since when I was young, I've always wanted to live away, probably in the mountains, have my own school, teach my kids or something like that. And, have that very organic life. So for me, this period doesn't seem so hard. And then there are those who've always mentioned about how they need the city life and they need the hustle and bustle and the noise and, the movement. And you too are living that life. So maybe you're getting used to living organically, and that's not a bad thing at the end of the day. You're also helping nature to survive. So why not? Yeah, it's got its own good. This is a lifetime experience, Shifa. And to be honest with you, we're few of those the people who are experiencing this in the world right now, we are the ones who have the most interesting stories about hope, survival, struggle, fighting.
Totally.
I mean, when you talk about uncertainty, the fact is that the virus itself is invisible. We don't know what's hitting us, when it's hitting us, what's going on.
Even on Smile India these days, I'm talking about stories like this. And in fact, just one of the episodes I just did today was about how this one woman got admitted to hospital in Raipur, and she came with her two children. Her baby boy was like 3 months old, and a daughter who's almost 2, and she didn't have anyone to look after them. So the nurses took over, and now that lady is still in hospital. It's been about 3 weeks, and the nurses between are, taking turns, and between 4 of them, they're playing mommy to these two children. And which I think is so lovely that, absolute stranger. And this is how, things are. And I think that's really wonderful.
Really wonderful. And too much to learn. To be honest, we've not taken the time to pause and think and react.
Yeah, and also, desperate times and desperate measures and all of it. And you get to see a whole lot of, sides of people who you think you know really well. But you realize that how they're reacting to this says so much. Yeah.
It is true, because sometimes I've, stories around you of very educated people still sitting and having a small little picnic in their societies is very surprising. So there is a lot. I mean, as long as I'm not in a position where I can't get a meal to the table, I really don't have anything to complain about. Just go one day at a time, just every step, we just take every step as it comes. And we'll get through this eventually.
Of course we will. This too shall pass.
Absolutely. So maybe your words of wisdom to our listeners.
I'm not such a wise person.
Yeah, but words of wisdom, everyone has a little wise side to them which they can't see. And you, please, I'm pretty sure you do. You have good news Indians. That's a wise move itself, having to start something because there's so much negativity around you.
Yeah, no, actually I used to write for these chicken soup for the soul books. I still do occasionally. So I realized from that also that there's just so much. You just need to just wear another, I won't say hat also, but just look around. And there's so many interesting people who are motivational without knowing about it. And after I wrote, for about 10 series, back to back, I started getting, even now I get emails from people saying that, you wrote that thing in the single soul and that stayed with me. So I realized that, yes, I need to do more in the space of hope, because that is the most important thing. That's, for me, I think hope is like the most important. Joy and hope.
Hope. Amazing. And finally, please tell us what empowers you, Shifa.
What empowers me? I think what I just said, that I look for joy in, people, situations, places, and I'm never let down. So I look for pockets of joy every day. And every night, the one thing I do is, which I'm sure, a lot of people do, is just say thank you for 10 good things that happened to me today. And most days there are more than 10 things to thank the universe for.
Right. So you practice gratitude every day, every night rather.
Yes, I do.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So thank you for empowering us so much, Shifa, with joy and pockets of joy. You've given us a few pockets of joy today on this episode.
Thank you, Zarina. This is so much fun. And I was just thinking about what am I going to say and how am I going to sound, but you've made me very comfortable. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for just sharing all this positivity with us, because I think in these times, everybody just requires a little bit of that. So thanks for that. Thanks for giving us hope. And
everyone should listen to the Smile India podcast.
Yes, I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that. Get empowered, and then, or you go, Smile India and get empowered. So whatever you choose, choose the podcast. You decide. But do give Smile India a listen. Shifa, you're doing a great job. Keep it up, and all the best for all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Zarina. Thank you.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. We'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. Do definitely check out our social media accounts. We've been doing some really cool stuff over there. There are a bunch of recommendations from hosts. I think you'll really enjoy the content that we're putting out there. And make sure you don't miss your favorite shows. Cyrus Says has been putting out some great stuff, as is the Prakati podcast. All About Policy has been doing some really, really fun stuff. The guys at Football Shitball and Football Twaddle are continuing to release episodes as well, which are really interesting. Paisa Vaisa Anupam's been having guest after guest, just killing it. Pulya Bazi's been doing so well. Postcards from Nowhere. All these shows are really, really doing well and really, really putting out great stuff. Appreciate the efforts that the hosts are putting in the lockdown. And thanks for listening, and we hope to catch you again next week.
Entertainment is like food for the brain. It's a window to culture and a great way to understand the world around us. The internet has changed what it means to be an entertainer, creating new storytellers with millions of fans. It has spawned a new breed, the story sellers, those behind the scenes creating the business for this ecosystem. They work with brands, platforms and channels who are keen to capitalize on an audience hungrier than ever for more stories. I'm Vineet Kanabar, and I have a ringside view to how stories are told and sold. On my show, I bring you creators, artists, executives, and marketers for a freewheeling conversation around the business of entertainment. Tune in to Storytellers and Story Sellers for personal stories, analysis, and criticism every Thursdays as I talk to the brightest minds telling or selling great stories today.